In the forest, two figures moved swiftly through the dense woods. They were so fast that even a keen eye would only catch a fleeting glimpse, with the leaves briefly rustling before their shadows vanished into the distance. Lindong, those guys were pushovers. Their names sounded so fierce, but they went down way too easily, muttered Mu Lingshan, keeping pace beside Lindong. She had expected a major battle earlier, but once the blood execution guards were separated, their strength fell apart surprisingly fast. That's fine by me, saved us some time. Now the real powerhouses are all speeding toward Boundless Mountain. No one wants to waste time on minor skirmishes along the way. When we reach the base of Boundless Mountain, that's where the real battle will be waiting, Lindong said with a grin. And besides, our earlier fight didn't go to waste. Haven't you noticed? Fewer people have been trying to block our path since, he added. Mu Lingshan tilted her head thoughtfully. He was right. Along their journey, those who had previously eyed them with hostility seemed to have backed off. Twice, they'd even encountered rival groups clashing. Yet when those groups saw Lindong and Mu Lingshan approaching, they simply stopped fighting and let them pass through without so much as lifting a finger. It was clear that their victory over the blood execution guards had sent a message. Let's pick up the pace then. I'm curious to see what kind of powerful figures we'll find at Boundless Mountain. Mu Lingshan chuckled eagerly. Lindong nodded, lightly tapping off a slender tree branch. His figure shot forward, gliding through the forest like an eagle. As they continued, the number of strong opponents dwindled, though the strength of those they did encounter was notable enough to make Lindong raise an eyebrow. Yet even these powerhouses, upon seeing Lindong and Mu Lingshan, quickly averted their gaze and slipped away, clearly wary of provoking them. Amused by their caution, Lindong chuckled inwardly and shook his head, quickening their pace once more. Swoosh! Lindong darted through the trees as agile as a monkey, glancing ahead. Judging by their speed, they'd likely reach Boundless Mountain within the next half hour. His eyes narrowed as he abruptly halted, raising a hand to signal Mu Lingshan. She caught up, curiosity in her gaze. What is it? Lindong slowed and landed on a large tree branch, his gaze fixed on an open clearing ahead. A metallic tang filled the air. Sprawled across the ground were more than a dozen bodies, their blood staining the earth. They were killed. Mu Lingshan's brows furrowed as she took in the sight. Everyone in the boundless mirror carried a spirit seal that would transport them out if crushed. But here, these people were slaughtered without a chance to escape. A cold-blooded execution. Such brutal efficiency. She murmured, appalled. Lindong leapt down among the bodies, touching a finger to the blood-stained ground. As he channeled his devouring power, a faint wisp of dark energy seeped out from the blood. Alien demon aura, he said quietly. The ones who did this were alien demons. If I'm not mistaken, Sushio or Huachun is likely responsible. These people were strong, but they hadn't even managed to put up much of a fight. There were only a handful in this competition capable of such ruthless efficiency, and with the presence of alien demon energy, the culprits were obvious. They're taking the same path as us? Mu Lingshan said, surprised. I thought we'd only run into that kind of trouble at the end. Let's go. Lindong's eyes narrowed as he glanced ahead, then shot forward once more. Along the rest of their journey, Lindong came upon similar scenes. Each time, strong fighters lay dead, their spirit seals untouched. The sight made Lindong's gaze grow cold. Whoever was doing this showed no mercy, slaughtering everyone they encountered without a thought. Something's happening up ahead. Be on guard. Lindong's expression turned steely as he sensed a chilling wave of energy emanating from deeper in the forest. Who are you? In a secluded forest clearing, a group of battered figures huddled together, staring fearfully at a man perched on a tree branch ahead. The sight was unsettling. Even with the combined might of 3 top-ranked newcomer elites, they had been driven to such a miserable state. What kind of fierce power could push them to this level of desperation? Huang Ling and his 2 companions stood frozen, their gazes locked forward. Ahead, a man in black robes balanced casually on a tree branch. His appearance was utterly ordinary, unremarkable. Yet the faint smile tugging at his lips sent a deep, chilling dread through their hearts, like the smile of death itself. Moments earlier, the three of them had joined forces, only to be overpowered in a single strike by this man. The sheer terror of his strength was beyond belief. The so-called newcomer rankings of the Chaos Demon Sea, nothing more than this? The black-robed man chuckled, his gaze falling mockingly upon the battered trio. You! Huang Ling erupted in anger, ready to lash out, but was quickly restrained by Qian Qing at his side. This man, he appeared out of nowhere. His strength is on par with Tang Xinlian and Zhou Zhe. We're no match for him. We have to leave now. At Qian Qing's words, Huang Ling's face contorted in a mix of frustration and reluctance. Retreating now would be humiliating, but what choice did they have? If you're thinking of leaving, that might be just wishful thinking. The man in black gave a faint smile. Hearing this, Qian Qing's eyes flickered with alarm. He opened his palm, only to find that the spiritual seal he held had mysteriously vanished, leaving only a faint black line trailing across his palm. What did you do? Qian Qing's pupils shrank as he shouted, his voice sharp. I don't like to leave loose ends. The black-robed man's smile grew colder, a deadly glint surfacing in his eyes. So, you'll all be staying here. Without another word, he raised his hand, unleashing a vast surge of malevolent black aura that morphed into a gigantic hand, ruthlessly reaching toward Huang Ling and his companions. Boom, boom, boom. Refusing to surrender without a fight, the trio unleashed their formidable primordial energy in an explosive counterattack. Yet, each strike dissolved into thin air as it struck the monstrous black hand, vanishing without leaving a trace. What? Horror filled Huang Ling and the others' eyes as they realized their attacks were useless. Who was this man, with such unnatural power? They had never heard of anyone like him in the Chaos Demon Sea. Die! The black-cloaked man's voice remained cold as ever. The massive black hand hovered above the trio, about to strike them down, when a sudden crack of thunder erupted from the forest. A powerful thunder dragon crashed in, slamming into the black hand with violent force. Boom! A shockwave ripped through the air, forcing Huang Ling and the others to stumble backward. Stunned, they looked up to see two figures emerging from the dense forest and stepping before them. Lin Dong. Huang Ling and his companions stared, momentarily dumbfounded, as Lin Dong, the one they'd once had a conflict with, now stood before them as their unexpected rescuer. Lin Dong, however, paid no mind to them. His sharp gaze was fixed on the mysterious black-robed figure. The stranger's appearance clearly did not match that of the faceless Su Xiu, the top-ranked figure in the newcomer rankings. Well, so we meet at last. The black-robed man looked at Lin Dong, a brief flicker of surprise in his eyes, before he chuckled lightly. Lin Dong's eyes were steely as he spoke. You must be Hua Chen from the Yuan sect? Yuan sect? Hua Chen? Huang Ling and the others glanced at each other in shock, clearly surprised that such a powerful individual had come all the way from the distant eastern mystery region. The black-robed man's faint smile remained as he gazed at Lin Dong, shrugging nonchalantly in response. Seems you've gathered quite a bit of information. You're here for the Thunder Ancestral Talisman, aren't you? Lin Dong said calmly. The Thunder Ancestral Talisman is my main objective, Hua Chen nodded, his eyes glinting as he looked at Lin Dong. But there's also a secondary task, bringing your corpse back with me. Funny, Hua Yuan and his group said the same thing at first, Lin Dong replied with a chilling smile. But in the end, none of them even had the chance to go back. Hua Chen's eyes narrowed, a mocking smile on his lips. Those three were nothing but trash. Taking them down was hardly worth mentioning. As for whether I'll be able to bring your corpse back, well, you're welcome to try and stop me. The two locked eyes, a deadly tension filling the air. Gladly. Lin Dong's cold smile spread as his eyes sharpened. With a sudden grasp, the Thunder Emperor's scepter materialized in his hand, his figure instantly becoming a blur as he charged Hua Chen, streaking toward him like a bolt of azure lightning. Hua Chen gazed at the rapidly enlarging green light in his pupils with a faint, detached smile, then shifted his body with an eerie calm. Boom! In a flash, the Thunder Emperor's scepter, crackling with arcs of lightning, shot from Hua Chen's shoulder with fierce momentum. The stray bolt that grazed Hua Chen's hair turned a single lock into ash. Honestly, this isn't quite the threat you imagined, Hua Chen murmured, curling two fingers as sinister black energy erupted, coalescing into a chilling black sword. Shadows flickered, and razor-sharp sword auras, like a storm, blanketed the figure hurtling toward him. Clang, clang, clang. The Thunder Emperor's scepter whirled, blazing with lightning that clashed with the shadowed sword strikes. Each impact unleashed a violent shockwave, splitting the ground with massive spiderweb fractures spreading from their feet. Though lightning intertwined with black energy, the ominous alien demon aura struggled to achieve the effect Hua Chen desired. Instead, the flickering lightning seemed to resist, holding its ground against the sinister aura. Well. So this scepter holds the power of the Thunder Ancestral Talisman. Hua Chen's voice held a note of surprise as he sensed the hidden power within the Thunder Emperor's scepter. Did you pick this treasure up in the Thunder Realm? Lin Dong's face remained impassive. With a slight movement, thunder boomed from the scepter. Roar! Green light blazed, and a low dragon's roar echoed as a ferocious thunder dragon detached itself from the scepter, lifting its head in a thunderous roar before diving toward Hua Chen. Limited though the Thunder Ancestral Talisman's power may be, you're wildly overestimating its effectiveness against me, Hua Chen said with a smirk, extending his hand to grasp the massive thunder dragon. Whoosh! 5 powerful black beams shot forth from Hua Chen's body like colossal serpents, winding around the oncoming thunder dragon. Shatter! Hua Chen's gaze turned icy, his hand clenched tightly. Bang! The 5 black beams constricted like chains, and the thunder dragon let out a pained cry as fractures spread across its enormous body before it burst apart with a deafening explosion. Lin Dong, holding the Thunder Emperor's scepter, tapped his toe on the ground to retreat swiftly, a serious expression tightening his features. Hua Chen's strength was indeed terrifying. Even without factoring in his alien demon nature, his power was clearly at the great completion of the death mystique stage. In comparison, the likes of Hua Yuan and the others seemed far inferior. Lin Dong, watch out for this guy. Huang Ling and his companions called out as they saw Lin Dong retreat, their attention evidently far more concerned with the menacing Hua Chen than anyone else. Lin Dong gave a slight nod, fully aware of how challenging an opponent Hua Chen posed. A foe of this caliber was not easily defeated. If I take you down here, it'll clear the way for me to claim the Thunder Ancestral Talisman, Hua Chen sneered, clenching his hand. Black energy dripped from his palm like liquid, gathering and forming into a black spear. I'm afraid you're lacking the skill for that, Lin Dong retorted coldly, his grip on the Thunder Emperor's scepter tightening as it pulsed wildly with electric light. Within him, his primordial energy surged like a roaring flood. Oh, really? Hua Chen's smirk deepened as his eyes flashed coldly, and in the next instant, he darted forward, a piercing killing intent spreading through the air like frost. Seeing Hua Chen's undisguised murderous intent, Lin Dong's expression darkened as a green light emanated from his body, and patterns resembling coiling green dragons began to emerge. Boom! Just as Lin Dong prepared to clash head-on with this deadly adversary, his heart suddenly skipped, and he looked up. A scorching wave of crimson, like a fiery torrent, was bearing down on them, carrying a familiar, fierce voice. You lapdog of Yuan sect, how dare you wreak havoc on Flame Deity Palace territory? As the fierce shout rang out, the searing red energy condensed into a ferocious fire phoenix, which hurtled toward Hua Chen with an unstoppable force. Himph! The sudden attack caused Hua Chen's eyes to narrow as he grunted coldly, planting his black spear into the ground. A column of black energy erupted, colliding fiercely with the fire phoenix. Boom! An immense shockwave rippled out, instantly reducing nearby trees to dust and forcing Huang Ling and the others to stagger backward. Amid the raging, chaotic energy, a slender figure lightly tapped the void and hovered gracefully in midair. Her long, fiery red hair flowed like flames, and in her hand, a magnificent fire phoenix spear shimmered as she pointed it directly at Hua Chen on the ground below. Well, seems you've had some bad luck. If I hadn't rushed over, today might have turned out a lot worse for you, don't you think? Tang Xinlian hovered in midair, her gaze shifting to Lin Dong, who was holding the Thunder Emperor's scepter, and smiled. No need to look down on me that much, don't you think? Lin Dong replied, a little helplessly. Tang Xinlian stifled a small smile, her eyes turning icy as she looked over at Hua Chun. I'd planned to wait until we got to Boundless Mountain to deal with you, but it seems the schedule has changed. Heh, the Fire Fairy of Flame Deity Palace, Tang Xinlian, you certainly live up to your reputation. Hua Chun looked up at her with a faint smile. Her presence indeed made him a little less dismissive. Since there are so many people here, I think I'll pass for now. But on Boundless Mountain, we'll have our chance, Hua Chun said, turning to Lin Dong with a smirk. I heard you like to have women fight your battles back in the Eastern Mystery region. Seems like you're quite the ladies' man. Though his tone was light-hearted, the mockery in it was more than obvious. But instead of showing any anger, Lin Dong just smiled slightly, fixing Hua Chun with a serious stare. I will kill you. Hua Chun shrugged casually. I'll wait for it. Let's see if you're worthy enough to make it to Boundless Mountain. With that, his figure turned into a streak of dark light, vanishing into the forest within seconds. You're usually sharper than that, wouldn't fall for such a shallow taunt, right? Tang Xinlian said as she descended to stand beside Lin Dong, giving him a sideways glance. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes, watching the direction where Hua Chun disappeared, and chuckled, shaking his head. Not angry. Just underestimated, that's all. But it's fine. I'll make up for it. Tang Xinlian tilted her head slightly, showing a refined profile with a delicately sharp chin. She looked at Lin Dong, who was still gazing in Hua Chun's direction. Though your grudge against him is significant, his first fight will be with me. I won't let him be yours. Lin Dong shifted his gaze to Tang Xinlian. I never meant to insult you. If you think my words hurt that pride of yours, all I can say is sorry. Tang Xinlian's clear eyes didn't waver as she stared at him intently. Hua Chun isn't the type to go easy, and this contest isn't some friendly spar. It's life or death. Also, my teacher made it clear, Hua Chun and Su Xiao must not get the Thunder Ancestral Talisman, so I'll do whatever it takes to stop them. Tang Xinlian knew Lin Dong's power wasn't weak. Though he was only at the perfect completion of the Life Mystique stage, he was strong enough to defeat those at minor completion of the Death Mystique stage. Still, both Hua Chun and Su Xiao had already reached the great completion of the Death Mystique stage, and with their hidden methods, they wouldn't be easy to deal with. If you want to make the first move, then go right ahead. Lin Dong gave her a slight smile. He wasn't in the mood to compete with Tang Xinlian over the spotlight. He had no intention of causing a big scene. As long as he could complete Mo Luo's request and reclaim his portion of the Thunder Essence, he was satisfied. If Tang Xinlian and Zhou Zhe could handle Hua Chun and Su Xiao, that would save him the trouble. Tang Xinlian looked at Lin Dong for a moment, then broke into a smile. She glanced back at Huang Ling and the others. Let's go. Boundless Mountain isn't far. Without another word, she turned, her long hair flicking behind her, and transformed into a streak of crimson light, speeding forward. Lin Dong and Mu Lingshan followed closely behind her. The remaining journey passed without incident. Within 10 minutes, Lin Dong and his group noticed the dense forest ahead thinning, and their view opened up. Soon, a towering mountain rose before them, majestic and vast, piercing the sky like a giant pillar. So, this is Boundless Mountain. Lin Dong landed lightly on a thick tree branch and looked up at the enormous mountain that seemed endless. Midway up the peak, heavy clouds shrouded the summit, obscuring the top from view. But through the Thunder Ancestral Talisman in his body, he sensed a familiar power calling to him from the mountain's peak. That was the Thunder Essence, separated from the Thunder Ancestral Talisman. At the mountain's base, figures filled the area, their gazes all blazing with intensity as they stared up at the towering peak. This was the ultimate battleground. The arrival of Lin Dong's group instantly drew attention, but most gazes lingered on Tang Xinlian, filled with both awe and caution. Well, looks like you're a bit late, a light-hearted voice called out as a figure approached. It was the Little Elephant King, Zhou Zhe. Ran into Hua Chun along the way. Had a bit of a skirmish, Tang Xinlian replied. Oh. Zhou Zei's eyes narrowed. Strong, Tang Xinlian remarked, a shadow of seriousness crossing her face. She knew full well the power behind her previous attack, yet Hua Chun had dispelled it with ease. It was clear that this figure from the Yuan sect of the Eastern Mystery region possessed formidable strength. Zhou Zei nodded slightly. If even Tang Xinlian acknowledged his strength, then Hua Chun's abilities must indeed be exceptional. There's no shortage of strong contenders here. Lin Dong's gaze swept over the area at the mountain's base, where he sensed numerous powerful auras, each formidable in its own right. Anyone who's made it through the relentless eliminations to reach this point must have some skill, Zhou Zei replied. The newcomer rankings carry weight, yes, but they don't cover every young elite in the Chaos Demon Sea. Some dark horses are not to be underestimated. Lin Dong nodded in agreement. Just as he was about to speak, he noticed a sudden chill radiating from Mu Ling Shan beside him. He glanced at her, surprised, and found the girl's expression dark as she glared at something in the distance. Following her gaze, he saw two figures standing on a nearby hill. One was a burly man, arms bare, with thick eyebrows and an air of hostility. A sinister blood shark symbol marked the center of his forehead. Beside him stood a petite, delicate-looking girl with refined features, though her expression was marred by an unrestrained arrogance. Both exuded potent auras, particularly the fierce-looking man. Though his strength hadn't yet reached the great completion of the death mystique stage, he was likely close to it. The two of them seemed to sense Lin Dong's attention. The burly man glanced briefly at Lin Dong before shifting his gaze to Mu Ling Shan, then grinned, a menacing glint in his eyes. The girl beside him sneered in disdain. Who are they? Lin Dong asked, frowning. Two thugs from the Blood Demon Shark clan, Mu Ling Shan replied through gritted teeth, her voice filled with anger. It was clear there was some history between them. So, they're from the Blood Demon Shark clan, Lin Dong mused. This clan had a long-standing feud with the immortal Sacred Whale clan. He figured Mu Ling Shan must have had unpleasant encounters with them before. The man's name is Shali, and the girl is Shaling. They're prominent members of the Blood Demon Shark clan's younger generation, Tang Xinlian explained, having noticed the two from afar. Lin Dong nodded. He could sense the hostility in their eyes, directed specifically at Mu Ling Shan. Reaching out, he gently patted Mu Ling Shan on the head and gave her a reassuring smile. Though the animosity might not be aimed at him, he wasn't about to stand by if they dared to harm her. Mu Ling Shan nodded, then shot a fierce glare back at Shaling, her expression mirroring the girl's disdain. Little brat, courting death, are you? Shaling's face turned icy, and she clenched her hand. Blood-red light gathered, forming into a swift, arrow-like attack that shot toward Mu Ling Shan with alarming speed. Seeing the girl's vicious strike, Lin Dong's face hardened. He swept his sleeve, sending a gust of wind that deflected the blood arrow and hurled it back at Sha Ling with increased force. With a loud bang, the arrow reappeared in front of Sha Ling, but Sha Li's hand lashed out, crushing it instantly. His face darkened as he glared at Lin Dong. You're asking to die, aren't you? For members of the Blood Demon Shark clan, your behavior certainly lacks refinement, Lin Dong remarked calmly. Sha Ling's face turned livid, while a brutal killing intent flared in Sha Li's eyes, blood-red light surging around him. Nearby, others looked on in surprise at the sudden clash, but kept silent. Both sides were known for their prowess, so a confrontation could only prove interesting. The 10 peaks of the Boundless Mountain are about to open. Let's secure the summit seals first, Tang Xinlian said quietly. Lin Dong nodded. Just as she spoke, light began cascading down from the towering mountain before them. Waves of mist parted, revealing 10 massive peaks, their summits shimmering with light, where faint glimmers of the summit seals could be seen. Excited murmurs spread through the crowd at the base of the mountain, with many eyes flashing red with anticipation. 1 peak per person, Tang Xinlian said, her gaze fixed on the glimmering seals at the mountaintops. Whether you can claim a summit seal depends on your own strength. Lin Dong nodded again. Tang Xinlian let out a light shout and was the first to dash forward, swiftly scaling one of the mountain peaks. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Following Tang Xilian's move, numerous powerful figures at the mountain's base sprang into action, their movements so fast that the air was filled with the sharp sound of slicing wind. Ling Shan, you want to pick one too? Lin Dong asked, glancing over at Mu Ling Shan. Mu Ling Shan nodded enthusiastically, hoisting up the life and death coffin lid before charging up her chosen peak. Seeing this, Lin Dong grinned and chose a mountain peak of his own, leaping towards it without hesitation. Brother Shark Force, let me tear that girl's mouth apart, Xia Ling said coldly, eyes fixed on Mu Ling Shan as she ascended one of the peaks. That guy. Leave him to me. I'll make him pay for what he said, sneered a bare-armed man beside him, his tone icy. With a silent nod, the two locked eyes before splitting up, each storming up their respective peaks. The once silent, boundless mountain was now alive with action as countless fighters swarmed up its slopes, signaling the beginning of the final battleground. The last, decisive battle had arrived. Lin Dong moved like lightning, his figure a blur of green light as he sped up the mountain path toward the summit. Boundless Mountain had 10 peaks, each with 3 trails leading to the top. But passing through these trails wouldn't be easy. Fierce battles awaited anyone who dared attempt the ascent. Like a nimble monkey, Lin Dong darted through the dense foliage on the path, his eyes fixed upward. Not far ahead, he could see the powerful auras of other fighters. They, too, had sensed Lin Dong's swift approach. Sizzle. Lin Dong's eyes gleamed with a blue light as he clenched his hand, summoning the Thunder Emperor's scepter. Lightning crackled wildly around it, flashing along the path. Boom! The roar of thunder echoed down the mountain trail as lightning flashed, and a lean figure powered through all resistance, leaving chaos in his wake. At that moment, Lin Dong had clearly pushed the primordial energy within him to its limit. He knew he had to reach the summit as fast as possible and claim the summit seal, securing one of the 10 spots to contend for the Thunder Ancestral Talisman. His relentless speed turned the trail into utter chaos, with more and more fighters joining the fray. Yet, none could stop Lin Dong, who tore through the resistance like a wild beast. With thunderous crashes, the green flash of his figure surged toward the peak. Damn, this guy. He's like an animal. Hell, I didn't even have a chance to move before he kicked me. He smashed my face with that staff of his. My nose is broken. Maybe we should team up and take him down. This guy might be the strongest on this path. Just my luck to run into him. Not necessarily. Didn't that other maniac already dash ahead too? These two beasts. Was it Qin Yuan? Huh. Let's see what happens when those two brutes collide. Who's tougher? As Lin Dong's green-lighted figure surged forward, curses flew from the fighters left behind. Many simply gave up. With Lin Dong here, the chances of them making it up this trail were slim. Whoosh! Lin Dong ignored the shouts behind him, streaking forward like a bolt of lightning. After some time, he lifted his gaze toward the nearing summit, his eyes blazing with intensity. He knew that on the other 2 trails leading up the same peak, other powerful fighters were likely vying for the lead. Stop right there. This path is mine and mine alone. A thunderous voice boomed, jarring Lin Dong from his thoughts. A massive figure burst forth, descending upon Lin Dong with an overwhelming force. Bang! Even before the attack reached him, the ground below began to crack, fissures snaking outward from the sheer force. Humph! Lin Dong's gaze turned cold as he gripped the Thunder Emperor's scepter firmly. He didn't dodge, swinging the scepter to meet the assault head-on. Boom! The deafening impact sent shockwaves rippling outward, tearing through the forest below and leveling it in an instant. Lin Dong's shoulders shook as he felt a powerful force invade his body. But he activated his devouring power, neutralizing the impact, then looked up. His opponent, a hulking figure, had also been forced to stagger back, his foot smashing down on a boulder that crumbled to dust beneath him. The towering figure steadied himself, his expression shifting slightly. Only now did Lin Dong get a clear look at him. A burly, shirtless man with muscles packed like iron lumps, pulsing with a frightening energy. In his grip, he held an enormous iron hammer several feet in length, a striking, intimidating sight. Sixth on the newcomer rankings, Qin Yuan of the Giant Spirit Hammer Clan? Lin Dong's gaze narrowed, recognizing the giant instantly. No wonder his strength felt so overwhelming. This was no ordinary adversary. You're that Lin Dong? Qin Yuan's face changed slightly as he looked at Lin Dong, clearly recognizing his reputation as well. Friend, would you mind letting me pass? Lin Dong asked, his tone firm. He didn't have time to get tangled up here. Heh, let you pass? Then I'd be the one left empty-handed, wouldn't I? Qin Yuan chuckled, hefting his massive hammer. If you want through, you'll have to ask my hammer's permission. Don't think having Tang Xinlian's backing means I'm afraid to take you on. In that case, I'll just have to be a bit rude. Lin Dong's lips curved into a faint smile as he gripped the Thunder Emperor's scepter, his fingers tightening around it. Bring it on. Qin Yuan's voice boomed like a muffled bell as he swung his hammer, sending shockwaves through the air with its immense force. Brilliant green light surged from Lin Dong, and radiant dragon-shaped patterns appeared, roaring and soaring around him. 1, 5, 10, 20, 30. 30 green dragon patterns coiled around Lin Dong, filling the air with a low dragon's roar. The air trembled as a terrifying wave of energy emanated from him. Watching the 30 green dragon patterns surrounding Lin Dong, Qin Yuan's face finally grew serious. Now he understood how Lin Dong had gained fame so quickly in the Chaos Demon Sea. His strength was truly formidable. One move to take you down. A fierce gleam lit up in Lin Dong's eyes, his confidence soaring as he laughed, charging toward Qin Yuan with the 30 dragon patterns trailing like a storm behind him. I'd like to see if you've got what it takes. Qin Yuan roared, pushing his primordial energy to its peak as he stepped forward, raising his hammer high, like a wrathful deity about to unleash divine punishment. Giant Spirit Sky Hammer. A colossal glowing hammer, hundreds of feet wide, tore through the air with terrifying momentum, slamming toward Lin Dong in a thunderous arc. The clash echoed with a dragon's roar and deafening explosion. In that instant, the mountain seemed to tremble as massive cracks webbed out like a spider's web. All eyes were locked on the impact zone as a pillar of green light shot skyward. To their shock, they saw Qin Yuan's colossal light hammer blasted backward. Crack! The light hammer shattered, and Qin Yuan's iron hammer fell heavily to the ground, shaking the earth as it landed. Spurt! Qin Yuan himself staggered in midair, blood spurting from his mouth as he was flung backward, crashing to the ground and leaving a deep crater in his wake. Thank you for the match, Lin Dong's calm voice echoed as he reappeared in the sky, clutching the Thunder Emperor's scepter. He glanced down at the battered Qin Yuan with a faint smile before launching himself up toward the summit, leaving a trail of gasps and shocked stares in his wake. Who could have expected Qin Yuan, ranked 6th, to be defeated by Lin Dong in a single move? Is this guy's real strength? Exchanging glances, some of the onlookers saw fear mirrored in each other's eyes. Few on the newcomer rankings could achieve such a feat, perhaps only the top 3, and now it seemed they'd have to add another name to that list. Oblivious to the shocked gazes behind him, Lin Dong pushed his speed to the limit, launching himself upward and finally reaching the summit's peak. Bang! As soon as Lin Dong arrived, a muffled crash echoed nearby. He watched as a figure was sent flying back, skidding to a stop in front of him, leaving a deep groove in the ground. The figure coughed, blood spraying as he staggered upright, his appearance wretched and battered. Qing Tong. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed as he recognized the figure. Qing Tong, ranked 4th on the newcomer rankings. But seeing him so severely injured, Lin Dong's gaze turned serious. Lin Dong looked up toward another part of the summit. There, enveloped in a blood-red glow, was a figure with scarlet arms, radiating an intense, menacing aura that immediately caught his attention. It was Shark Force, from the Blood Demon Shark Clan. Well, to make it this far, you must have some skill, Shark Force sneered, taken aback at first but quickly breaking into a sinister grin.